Welcome to a big tutorial. We will understand how I use essential graphics for face rigging. We start with preparing the lip sync, where we have mouth shapes for different letters. To control them, we create a null object. To make things easier, I made a preview of all the mouth shapes I have. Each opacity on a layer will have an expression, and to control it, we apply a slider effect on the null object. We use this expression to link opacity control to our slider. After assigning the slider, we copy the expression to all our layers. Now, in the expression, we have an indicator showing that this layer will be visible when the slider reaches the corresponding number. So, when the number in the slider matches the one assigned to the layer, that layer becomes visible. To organize things better, I use a life hack. Positive mouth shapes are numbered from 1 to 9, and negative ones from 11 to 19. This makes it easier for me to insert numbers into the animation. After setting everything up, I can easily switch between mouth shapes using the slider. To add the slider to Essential Graphics, I use the Essential Namer script. I have version 1, which is simple and convenient. This script allows us to add a selected property to Essential Graphics with just one button click. The Essential Graphics panel appears, where we can rename the property for easier organization. Then, we exit the lip sync composition and check if everything is correct in Essential Properties, where our slider is located. To make the slider properties accessible outside the head composition, we can't do it directly. Instead, we add a slider to the composition and link the slider from Essential Properties to the new slider in the composition. Finally, using Essential Namer, we add this new slider to Essential Graphics, but this time for the head composition. This way, when we exit the head composition, we have a slider that controls the lip sync, allowing us to switch mouth shapes as needed. To control the eyes, I use joysticks and sliders, specifically sliders. I set keyframes for 3 positions: bored eyes, angry eyes, and closed eyes. With the help of the slider, I create 2 null objects that will control the right and left eye. On each null, I create 3 sliders that correspond to these eye expressions. According to my structured workflow, I first add lip sync to Essential Graphics, then everything related to the eyes, and finally the eyebrows. This repeated structure speeds up my workflow because I don't have to constantly search for different controls. So, I link the pupils to a null object, which directs their movement. I always use the same naming conventions and colors. Using Duic, I reset the null's position to 0 to make it easier to manipulate. Then, I add this property to Essential Graphics. I usually place the eyebrows in a separate composition in case I need variations. I use the same expression as for lip sync, but instead of a number, I write index. This way, the expression reads the layer's position. If the layer is in the first place, setting the slider to 1 will display that eyebrow. If I set it to 2, the next eyebrow will appear. I follow the same procedure. I create a slider that controls the eyebrow, add it to Essential Graphics, and inside the head composition, I place another slider on the eyebrow layer and link it to the Essential Graphics slider. Then, I add this slider again to the Essential Graphics of the head composition, making it fully accessible from the outside. For positioning the eyebrows, I reset their position to 0 and extract only the Y position so they can move up and down. I also add rotation for each eyebrow to Essential Graphics. To move both eyebrows together, I link them to a null object and take only its anchor point. Since I have already made a tutorial on animating facial movement, I simply take the position of the null object that moves the face. Outside the composition, I have 3 shape layers in the form of small cubes, each with a standard color that I use for controls. The yellow cube controls the mouth, so I add a slider to it and link it to the Essential Graphics slider in the head composition. The red cube controls the eyes, and since I already have sliders for all 6 eye expressions, I link them accordingly. I use a logical approach where the left side is always positioned below the right side, whether it's eyebrows, eyes, or hands. I create a pointer to control the pupils. Then, I check if everything is linked correctly. Now, with the help of ChatGPT, I have created an expression. If the checkbox is on, only the first 3 sliders will control all 6 eye expressions. If the checkbox is off, Each eye is controlled individually. The expression is displayed on the screen. I do the same for the eyebrows. I create sliders and link them to control eyebrow switching, y-axis movement, and rotation. For rotation, it's important to add a minus sign to one eyebrow so that when I enter the same number, both eyebrows move symmetrically. For moving both eyebrows together, I use an expression to lock movement on the x-axis and only link the y-axis to the slider. I also add a minus sign for individual eyebrow movement, so that when I move the slider to the right, the eyebrows follow the same direction as when moving both together. After linking everything in Essential Graphics, I can easily animate. I always follow the same workflow. First, I animate lip sync to add emotion, whether the character speaks happily, angrily, or negatively. Then I animate the eyes, which enhance expression. Finally, I animate the eyebrows, which emphasize the character's emotions. I don't always need individual movement for the eyes or eyebrows, so I only use keyframes where necessary. Bonus: when we have a character with a single body but different heads, we can easily copy a head from one composition to another. However, to maintain efficiency and control both heads using just those 3 cubes, it's important to rename the cubes before copying the head so that they match the names of the cubes in the composition where the head will be placed. This way, the expressions will contain the correct information and will automatically find the sliders after copying, allowing them to function properly. With this approach, we animate only once, and both heads will share the same animation. To switch between heads, we use the checkbox effect, which allows us to swap one head for another with a single click. This way, we can have multiple heads with full rigs inside a single body. After linking all dependent layers to the checkbox, we parent all auxiliary heads to a single main head, the one where we applied the checkbox. This way, when we animate the main head, all the auxiliary heads will move together with it. We can then lock the heads that we don't need and manipulate only one at a time, the one controlled by the checkbox switch. I hope this makes your workflow much more efficient. Good luck!